Aquaman 52, Kelly Sue DeConnick writing with Robson Roca
Oof.
on the art. More Kraken, well, not really Kraken, but sea monster with
Yeah, sea
tentacles.
monster. And speaking of D&D, Jackson going full in
Oh yeah, he
on
was he was like,
this.
oh, a saving throw. That's how you roll. All
Yeah,
right then.
yep.
Uh,
Full nerd.
He went
plus
full
three
So
nerd.
water bearers cracked me up.
plus
Yeah.
3 water bears, yeah. And yeah, and this the Manta stuff still. I don't feel like it's matching the rest of the
If
tone of the
I'm
book.
going to tell you now, that
Yeah.
section drops this book by a point for me at the end because I was just like, why are we doing this? This is so
It
disconnected.
might be a half point. I do like where it's going and what he's doing.
I think the Manta
Um,
stuff will be fun once it actually is the main plot. Like once it's
Yeah,
But it just felt so disparate and just
Yeah,
thrown
it-
in
it
here.
Yeah.
It
felt
didn't
wedged
feel
in.
connected at all.
Yeah, I will say
Um,
the same problem we had with the Odd Face last issue is popping up, but I do think Roca's art when it comes to the monster and like the battling in the water and the Aquaman jumping out and catching the trident, as it's thrown into the
That's
air,
pretty
Pretty
dope.
great.
you know, all that stuff looks really good.
I got to get all stabby on you.
Mm.
Like, there's some fun dialogue here. But yeah, mostly the art's pretty good. So I mean, Phil Roca really excels during action scenes.
And I like the coloring. I like the overall
This one's
tone.
must have.
The
the
coloring when Arthur goes flying through the lighthouse
Mm.
Yeah,
and it explodes is just gorgeous.
and the bigger part of this is seeing the cost of being a hero. So Jackson sees this where he can't rescue that guy,
Arthur, yeah.
Arthur, and he drowns. And then they have the funeral for him, and I thought that was you don't see that too much in superhero comics.
I think his name was Ralph, not Arthur.
Oh, is it Ralph?
That's
Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know where I got Arthur from. Then.
But they're
Because
trying.
that's Aquaman.
But so
Oh.
they're trying to resuscitate him.
Oh yeah, good point.
You're right.
Jesus Christ, are you sure you're on a DC podcast?
No, we hate comics, guys.
Arthur.
Um,
I almost call him Aquaman. All right.
Yeah, I know, but come on.
Yes. Arthur Curry is Aquaman. Yeah. Right.
I thought it too, though. Like I forgot his name.
Yeah. Ralph.
So-
I think it was. I
Ralph.
think I remembered Ralphie, and then Ralphie to Arthur's. Similar.
Wait, what? How's Ralphie similar to
It's from a
Arthur?
similar era. I can see like the same kid
Also-
being called that in like a sitcom from the 70s.
So there's this narration over it, and we don't exactly know what it's from as as we go. So Pete, is this an actual Scottish prayer?
No,
need to know.
I don't know. What are you asking me? Do you think I know prayers?
Well, he says from ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties.
I mean that
things that go
that part
bump in
does
the
sound
night.
that does long-legged beasties
Good
does
Lord.
sound familiar.
Good Lord, deliver us. So goes the Scotsman's prayer. So I'm just saying, like, I
The
don't.
long-legged beasties does sound familiar. Maybe it's taken from an old Robert Burns or Rabbie Burns to say it in the local way. But no, interesting. No, this was a fairly quick read, but it was beautiful and all the fighting was really fun, and it has this kind of downbeat ending. I think the symbolism of the lighthouse getting smashed up and like this beacon of light not being there anymore.
Yeah,
I think it's so fascinating to me that the monster vanishes as the lighthouse is destroyed.
yeah.
Like that's what was tethering it.
Yeah, and we have. I love the image of them all out in these little boats, and like the priest is like in the middle boat, like saying the not the eulogy, but saying the final thing. And all these little red pots they're putting in the water to sort of symbolize. It's kind of the equal thing of the lanterns in certain rituals.
Yeah, we're in I know in Hawaii, when someone dies in the ocean, they put leis out. They go in a circle, and they float those out too. The flower necklaces. So same kind of sentiment. And all that's kind of upset by flipping Mecha Manta, and don't call him son. And I just felt like, yeah,
It felt out of tone with the rest of the book. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
it did.
He calls me captain.
Yeah.
I did kind of like that. I also like that they go to this proto-Atlantean civilization, and Manta's just there to destroy it, because that's what he's all about now.
You know what? It particularly frustrated me that this was intercut with the funeral. Because like that's so tonally offbeat that it was jarring.
I think if anything, what they should have done is just put it all at the end and say it's like an epilogue. So the story finishes there and you get a few pages of the Manta plotline on its own.
Yeah, which I'd still dislike because it would still feel jarring. But I think I'd like it. Wouldn't ruin the flow of the moment in like the funeral.
It wouldn't interfere with the pace or the tone. But the final page, we find out who's actually been doing all this narration. Tristram Maurer shows up.
Who's the long lost writer that disappeared 200 years ago.
Yeah,
monster dude.
Yeah, the lighthouse dude who the story was told about.
Not H.P. Lovecraft.
I wonder if he was the monster, because if you look at his shadow, and you could argue and tell me it's some hair and stuff like that, but it looks a bit tentacly.
No, I think it's definitely shown as he is the monster.
And that's why it just happened to vanish and now he's here.
Yes.
Yep.
So, how did he become a monster?
Jackson's gonna lose it.
The story was that he was taken by a monster.
Yeah.
But is there a separate monster that took him and and has maybe replaced him, or was he just this all the time? Where was it always him?
If he is a H.P. Lovecraft analog, then maybe the monster's madness, right?
I mean, possibly, but I mean, the whole thing with H.P. Lovecraft is that, if you actually look at his writings, he was not a pleasant person. He was kind of a monster in his own way. So I wonder, you could almost read this as like an interesting commentary on Lovecraft, where he wrote about monstrous stuff, but he was kind of a monster himself. So this is kind of like a weird wink.
That's where it projected, and it was the madness. He was worried about going mad. That was his main thing. So that's what it translates into his books. But if you look at what Kelly Sue's been doing from the beginning with the ocean gods, and now all of this, and it's not really mythology, but it's in that realm.
It has become a mythology in its own right, I would say.
Well, it is called the Cthulhu mythos, right? But I just mean it in stories. Like the gods get their powers when people believe in them, and who's to say that this writer didn't attain the same kind of power? And now that there's books and games based, what I mean?
Super Morrison concept.
Or I'd say more. That's along the lines of a game in two, right? Is that what American Gods is all about?
Yeah.
So who's to say that now that there's this reinvigorated interest with the role playing games and all the books that Jackson's been reading, he hasn't attained the same kind of ability.
Kind of brought him back.
Yeah. Right. And maybe he's not the villain. Maybe that's just who knows? He's not the
tell that
monster,
to Ralphie, formerly known as Arthur.
Yeah. Well, the ocean. I also like that about how the ocean magnifies things. That's probably my favorite bit in the book. That if you're out on a boat, you're out at sea, it shows you who you really are, and that if you're a good person, it's only going to magnify that. But if you're this bitter, broken, cold-hearted, it's only going to turn you into a monster. Yeah. So maybe that plays into it as well.
Hence why Connor never goes sailing. So,
do you really want that?
I used to quite a bit of kayaking.
That kind of guy is the worst.
That kind of guy is the worst indeed. What are you rating the issue, Matt?
I'm going to give this one an 8. I enjoyed everything except for the pacing with the Manta and the occasional art thing here or there. But, Kelly Sue's been killing it on Aquaman. It's just another one.
Indeed. Connor?
Yeah, what he said, word for word.
Cool. I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 8.5. Despite I agree with the pacing stuff, but the Manta stuff sort of taken away from the tone of that bit. But everything it's doing is working so well for me, and it's got this great tone to it. I'm loving that it's dealing with a supporting cast, and the cop's a regular character again, Jackson being included, like all this stuff. And the actual fight would look great. I'm loving what it's doing with this sea monster stuff. So, 8.5 for me.